Welcome to the For Real Though Show, the podcast with a purpose for the people. My name is Christopher Keith, your host. Thank you for joining us. So hope you all are doing well, man. It's a crazy, crazy world out there. Crazy, crazy world. But we got to keep moving. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that stuff like a little later in some later episodes, but we're gonna talk about something else today. Today, we're going to talk about superpowers. Superpowers and gifts, right? Now, many of us grew up, liking superheroes. A lot of us still like them now, like whether, I don't know about you, but I was a comic book kid growing up and I used to collect comics. So, it was Marvel, DC, what have you, people like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Iron Man, right? Black Panther, Black Lightning. I didn't know about that one until that show came on WB. So everybody had their guy, right? And I think Black Panther was obviously a very popular one. I really wasn't hip to Black Panther for real, man, until the movie came out, like not in a serious way. So, and then when the movie came out, I thought it was just a movie. I didn't know it was a comic. So, shows you how much I know or how much I was taught. But that being said, let me show you who my guy was. That was my guy, Thor, right? I had a whole lot of Thor comic books. I don't know why I like Thor. Like I think it's because of that damn hammer. You know what I'm saying? I think it was that hammer, the muscles and stuff coming off the sides of the sleeves and everything, and his no sleeves rather. The perfect golden blonde locks coming down. You know what I'm saying? That cat swinging that hammer, man. It just did something to me, man. When I was a kid, that was my guy. Thor was my guy. So the movie was cool, but there was nothing like the epic, thing of like seeing the photos on the comic books and using your imagination. That was the really cool thing about it. So, but no, so when you think about it though, so again, we all I think as a culture, we've all really enjoyed superheroes. And I think the reason why is because, they give us a sense of awe and hope, you know what I'm saying? And we like to see people save the day. We like to see people solve problems for the betterment of society. You're right. And I think that's also why cop shows are popular, lawyer shows are popular. We just like people to save people and things, and we think superheroes are special, and they are special. But my question to you is, do you know that each of us has our own superpowers? Yes, yes, we do. Your superpowers are those things that set you apart from others, right? So that don't mean that you're the only one to possess that same kind of superpower, but you're the only one in your own space and in your own environment, your own Gotham City, if you will. And because you have your own unique personality, your superpowers will still have attributes that are specific to you as a person, right? So I'm going to share my superpowers with you, and the point of doing that is to help you find yours. So I recently learned of my own superpowers, by having a conversation with a trusted friend of mine, a friend for over 30 years. And it's not like he revealed something to me that I didn't know, but it was just the way he said it that resonated to me. And so it made me think, okay, it reminded me of my purpose. So I wrote my purpose down years ago, not like a decade ago, but maybe 3 years ago, I wrote down my purpose. And when I say my purpose, I mean my purpose in life, like the thing that I'm always going to be centered on. And excuse me, the reason why I wrote it is because it reminds me of who I am. And when I get away from being who I am and losing myself, if I go back to that thing that makes me who I am and remind myself of that, then I tend to line back up, and I tend to get into spaces and places and around people that I'm supposed to be in. And I know it stands up because the same thing that was true when I wrote it is true today, without any modifications. So before we get to my superpowers, I'm going to share my purpose. And so obviously your purpose are going to go into your superpowers, right? So based on your purpose, where your superpowers lie. So my purpose in this life on this earth, the reason I was born, to bring critical thought, demonstrate unconditional love, be there when needed most, display vulnerability and openness, be an honest broker in all things, defend the underdog, be steadfast in principles, unapologetic truth teller, and finally, a calming voice in the midst of conflict and chaos. So, let me expound on it a little bit. You know, part of my gifts have always been my ability to see people for who they are, not just for what they say, but what they mean, right? I have a keen sense of reading people. And I don't say that in a judgmental kind of way, but it's like really just an observational fashion, right? I see beyond smiles, expressions, right down to the depths of souls. I can read how a person feels or the baseline of their personality by their energy, even when they try to hide it. I sense meanings beyond words and language. I can tell when someone is arrogant and feels he is the smartest person in the room. And many of us can do that, but I can see it even when they smooth with it. I can tell the difference when someone wants to do something versus wanting to be something, right? I can tell when someone is a contributor or user. An incredible thing is I've seen these things my entire life. I used to try to talk myself out of it because I would try to think the best of people. But what I didn't realize is that my observation was just that. It was an observation. It was meant to be an observation. It wasn't meant to be a judgment. It wasn't meant to be something degrading or something to criticize the person over. It was strictly an observational thing. And I give you an example of where I used to like talk about these things to people and they wouldn't get it. But then like if they live long enough, it turned out to be for them, it turned out to be true. So I'm gonna give you an example. So in relationships, right? I used to always, when I'm in relationships, I always gave women the benefit of the doubt when it came to talking about other women, right? So like say for instance, you know, uh, you could be talking to a young lady or something, you in a relationship or whatever, and then the lady be like, your girl may be like, oh yeah, she like you, she into you, yada yada yada, or she thinks she's slick, this, that, and the other. Now the girl could be right or wrong, you know what I'm saying? She could be right or wrong about that. But my default, unless she was like an overjealous type of person, my default would just be to believe her because I would feel like, you see something in women that I don't see because I'm not a woman, right? And then women do kind of have their own language, they have their own codes and stuff like that. It's as men do. So, but on the flip side, I've had plenty of times where I told a woman, hey man, I know that dude say he your friend and stuff, but he want to fuck, like for real. Like he's really into you. And I didn't say that, like I didn't say those things as a jealous person. I said those things as like I'm a man. I can sense, what I'm saying? I can sense these things. It's not hard to do. It's not hard to do for me anyway. And I've never to this day, I've never had one woman come back to me and say, "You're right." Now, I've had some come back and say, it was true that they learned it later on that the person made a move or whatever, right? But even then, their pride will be like, but that don't mean he felt that way at the time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. I think sometimes I think women be like playing them little mind games and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, or they just don't want to tell you you're right. But anyway, so that's just one example. Like, it's not the best example, but it's one example of what I'm talking about. That like when it came time to me saying, dude want to get with you, I've never been wrong. Like my record is spotless on that, right? And again, I'm not like, I'm not in general a jealous person. You know what I'm saying? That's not really my my thing, So I don't know, like my girl Shantae always say, people gonna do what they want to do anyway. You know what I'm saying? So it don't mean you don't feel some type of way about it, but I just don't walk around like with this chip on my shoulder, thinking that, my girl can't give a guy a hug or can't have a conversation. Like it's just people are people. You know what I'm saying? I'm going a little too far for that, so I need to leave it go. But I hope you get what I'm saying. I'm not that over the top guy. Uh, I got friends that are girls, and every relationship I've ever had, the women I've been with had guys that were friends of theirs, and it never bothered me. But anyway, moving on. So, so that was just one example. So, with that said, let's get to my superpower. Sorry, I got distracted. My superpower is my ability to make people feel seen, heard, and understood down to the most intimate detail. And within that is ability to show up for people when they need me the most, in ways that offer some strength, encouragement, and insight, which helps them see the hidden things behind what they feel, what they think, and help transform their mind into seeing what is real versus what is an incomplete sense of self or sense of what is happening with them. Okay. In essence, I'm a natural healer. Okay. A natural healer. Uh, and I've just always been that way. Now, every superpower has tools, right? Every superhero has tools. And my tools are empathy, curiosity, love. And when those apply, they tend to give insight, it kind of opens new portals of wisdom, which catapults a person into a new stratosphere, into their mind. Uh, And to expand a little bit, let me just say, like, I'm the kind of person, and people who know me, like, really know me well, know this about me. Like, I'm a person who, when I'm in, I'm all in, right? I'm a true believer. I'm what I'm called a true believer, and I always have been, no matter what I was involved with, right? When I was in the church, I was in the church. You know what I'm saying? When I had my basketball team, I ran a basketball organization for a while, and that was something like just totally, totally invested in. Um, and even like now, I referee and stuff. Um, and referees, we call ourselves a brotherhood, if you will. And I'm the kind of guy that, I really believe in that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So uh as it relates to, being on the field, being on the court or what have you. And so I feel like, when we're out there, hey, we're a team just like that other, just like these two teams we're dealing with are a team. And we got to have each other's back. We got to support each other, And so when someone doesn't act that way, or says that we are part of the brotherhood, but then they do some unbrotherly stuff, then, like I'm just like totally out on them. I have no tolerance for that kind of behavior, like I'm just like I've said this before. Like if I was a Crip or a Blood, I would have been a hell of a Crip or a Blood. Even though I'm not a violent person, I'm not one that likes to steal, kill, or anything like that. But just the thought of having a brotherhood, a group of people who are in it for the same reasons to try to elevate each other, watch each other's back, whatever that is, like that's me. That's me. My friends can tell you that's just who I am. No special circumstances needed. It just is what it is. Uh, and so, that kind of just reflects in how that gift and how that motivation tends to help people because when I'm invested in them, I'm really invested in them. And I mean, to a critical degree, not overbearing, not smothering the person or anything like that. I just mean in terms of my intention, in terms of the thought process, that it would take to see things, to interpret things, to imagine things. Okay. So, saving the day. So if I was to say, am I me and my superpower saving the day? Saving the day for me, okay, it just means simply seeing somebody encouraged, seeing the light comes on and reveals something they didn't see before, but was there all along. You know, I can't tell you how many books I've read or things I've heard, and I'd be like, man, that was amazing. And it was so simple. It was there all along. So just like I want to give somebody that same feeling, I enjoy getting that same feeling, you know? And and then again, when they get this, the new insight tends to bring hope. And it's the difference between stagnation and depression, hope, okay, enlightenment, you know. So when I speak into a person's life and soul, pouring all of the experiences, love, and compassion that I have inside, it's an energetic infusion of life and discovery for the person, you know, if they receive it. And that's not a flex. Like that's just a real thing. Like it's happened time and time again, And so when I talk about these things, uh, it's wild because I'm just coming into accepting that, accepting these things like as reality, like because in our upbringing, especially in the church in Christianity circles, you tend to really downplay, you tend to learn to really downplay your gifts and talents. Whereas my evolved way of thinking now is to say, no, you don't have to diminish your gifts and talents at all. As a matter of fact, you should edify your gifts and talents. The only place where arrogancy would come in is if someone thought that their gifts or talents were more superior or more important or better than someone else's. So as long as you're not elevating yourself over somebody else, or elevating your status or thinking that you're all that a bag of chips at a 40 ounce, but somebody else ain't, then you're okay. You're like right where you need to be. And you do have to pump yourself up. You do have to be your biggest fan. So when I say what I'm saying, it's not, I just want to make sure you understand. It's not a flex because this is not the normal way I talk. Okay. I grew up the person who couldn't hardly take a compliment, always try to pass it back to the other person. You know what I'm saying? You pass me the ball, I'm gonna pass it back to you. I ain't gonna hold that ball too long. I ain't gonna shoot the ball, right? But I learned, man, hey, when you in your area of expertise, shoot the damn ball because if you don't, then you're cheating other people out of your gift. You know what I'm saying? You putting that burden on somebody else when in order for you to be your best self and then shine the light you're supposed to shine, then you need to recognize what your gifts and talents are, right? It's no different than anywhere else in life. If you're on a basketball team and you can't shoot, but you're a great rebounder, well, get your ass in there and get the rebounds, and you'll have a place on the team, right? As long as you do your job, it's gonna elevate everybody. But you can't be like, well, I don't know if I can rebound. You know what I'm saying? You can't have that attitude. You got to be like, yeah, I'm a great rebounder. Quick side story. There's a kid that I refereed in the league, city league this year. Had him 3 times. And he's like the skinniest kid on the team. He's not a great player by any stretch of the imagination. But when I tell you this kid is like the perfect fit for any basketball team, he does everything right. Like he's always in the right spot. He makes the right play like every single time. Great attitude. And I remember administering a free throw and he was in the first lane, right? He's in the first lane. And so another guy who was much bigger than him tried to move him out the lane. And he was like, no, I got it. I got it. I got it. So after he did this like 3 times, I looked at him and I winked my eyes. I said, yeah, man, I see you, big dog. I see you, big man. And he was like, yeah, yeah, rough, cause I know how to box out. You know what I'm saying? And you could just tell like he was really walking in his he was really walking in his flavor. You know what I'm saying? It was beautiful. It was beautiful, just the whole look on his face. And the funny thing is, the time I had them after that, toward the end of the season, I talked to his coach and I was like, man, you know who my favorite player on your team is? And he got like some scores on the squad, right? And this kid ain't a scorer. He can score. Like he hit damn near every shot he take. He just don't be looking for a shot. But anyway, so I told him, I said, that guy right there. And he was like, hey man, I love him. He's my heart. He's the perfect player. And so that's what I mean. So, and the reason how he's the perfect player is because he don't go out there and try to take all the shots. He don't go out there and try to dribble the ball all the time. But when he sees that he need to go in and take the ball down, he takes it down. When he sees that I need to do this, I need to get the rebound, I need to check this guy, that's what he's going to do. He just realizes it organically. So that's just what I'm learning to do. And again, that's what we should all learn to do, embrace, these gifts, embrace these superpowers. Okay, so uh now you got a flip side, right? Every superhero has a weakness, right? There are no superheroes that don't have weakness. Every superhero has his virtues, his strengths, and he's got his kryptonite, right? Uh, so, I would just call those like the blessings and curses of superpowers, right? And the same thing that can bring joy can bring pain, right? Being all in, right, requires a level of personal and emotional investment. So people with my superpowers, right, they tend to feel everything. And as a result, we consider every possibility on a matter. And this is good because, we think, we explore, we're curious, we're passionate, we want to get things right, blah, 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 how we interact with people around the world and, in our circles. But, all feelings are not good feelings. And there's a price to come, with exposing ourselves this way. And, so part of the risk, feeling deeply and really being invested in people is being misunderstood, being taken advantage of, or taken for granted, right? When you're a thinker and a talker, people think you say, can I say it? When you are a thinker and a talker, okay, which I am, but people tend to think you say everything you think. And that's not true because most people who are like that have my superpower, we, it may appear like we talk a lot or we have a lot to say. But in reality, most things that we think about, we don't say at all. Most things we observe in people, we don't say at all. Uh, and we could just keep a ton of shit to ourselves. And I think I've noticed that a lot of times people will take your kindness for weakness because they don't know that you peep in their game. You know what I'm saying? So you could be giving them a lot of love and dap here, and then you can see the way they move. But you're not necessarily gonna just call them out for it. You ain't gonna like expose them and all that kind of stuff. You just kind of observe, you just go, okay, I see, you know, and uh, because people with my superpowers are functional. If the thing doesn't serve a function, then we'll just keep it to ourselves. And if necessary, when it's time, we'll just drift off into the sunset and won't say nothing to you about it. Okay. All right. So, uh, other like the way this kryptonite would show itself, okay, and what could cause this kryptonite to appear is like again for a person like me, it's filters. Okay. Because again, like, and what is your filter? It's like there's an old word, a college word, schema. And schema is like in your brain, is like these file folders of memories. So when you think of a word or when you think of a situation, like your brain goes to this file folder. And in that file folder is all these experiences and what they meant to you, the way they uh, show themselves to you and the way you process them and then what you decide you feel about them, in that moment. And so they just keep coming back. So for me, if I have for me, filters of past traumas or negative experiences, okay, they can distort the reality of what I'm seeing. Okay. So if my filter is wrong, and if my filter is dealing with pain, right, past pain, then it can make me misinterpret an experience or interaction with the person, right? So I can take a word, a phrase, or a look totally out of context. Okay. So again, these superpowers are not, they're perfect in of themselves, but they're not necessarily always perfectly executed because we're always going to still be humans. And so that's why you can never get puffed up in pride or anything like that. That's why you always got to stay on your grind and work on your craft because the game is always evolving. You know what I'm saying? Life, information, it's always evolving. So, it's like a dance. like a line dance. You take the two steps forward, but then you're gonna take two steps back. Then you'll go to the side, to the left, to the right, right? You know, cha-cha, right? These are all like things like you think you're moving forward all the time, but sometimes, excuse me, to complete this dance, you got to move back. You got to go from left to right, it's east and west, north and south, right? So there's always this dance that, we have to be aware of. And and again, recognizing what your superpower detriments are, like what your kryptonite can be. And if you recognize that, then it would allow you, or in my situation, it would allow me to ask myself, okay, did I maybe catch that wrong? Did I interpret that wrong? Because maybe I was in a bad mood, or maybe I was feeling some type of way before this interaction ever happened. So then they meant it for one thing, and I just took it to somewhere else, right? It's just a human thing to do. And that's okay. But the key is just to be aware and to be self-aware of where you are. Put a pin in that. Put a pin in that. Okay. So another uh piece of kryptonite, the way it manifests is, I could be taken advantage of, or, by giving people the benefit of the doubt, or I could sometimes be disillusioned when people don't share my sensibilities of a basic sense of decency. I used to say, like, sometimes I used to really grapple with stuff because I'd be like, man, I just can't wrap my brain around it. I don't understand why they could do that, or how they could. I just don't get it. But the reality is I'm not made like that, so I'm not going to get it. And it's not for me to understand. It's really just for me to observe, right? It's meant for me to observe and, respect and move on. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is. So so that's one thing. So okay, so now we talked about, what the kryptonite is. So now how do you deal with avoiding that kryptonite as much as possible? Again, I'm going to talk about myself, and hopefully you can relate it to yours as you figure your superpowers out. So, my superpower workouts, okay? But I just put a pin in meditation. Meditation, because meditation calms my mind and it clears the filters so that my vision is clear. It takes these filters out and it makes me say, okay. And when I say meditation, meditation, you can say mindfulness. I don't want to give a I don't want to do a tutorial on mindfulness, but it's really just taking the time to calm your mind. It's not to judge what's in your mind. It's not to try to kick things out of your mind. It's really just to be curious enough to observe what's going on in your mind and then acknowledge what's going on in your mind. Okay, Christopher, like what's really going on? You got an attitude today. So let's sit down and think about, why do you have that attitude? What is going on? Why do you feel on edge? Why did you want to snap at that person when they said something to you, right? And then when you calm down and think about it, you don't judge it. You don't get upset about it. You don't kick yourself for it. You just be like, oh, you know what? I might have just been in the house too long. You know what, man? I probably need to listen to some music. You know what? I probably need to treat myself, you know, to a dinner or something, or a lunch or a drink. I need to do something for myself. I've been so invested in other people and work and doing all these tasks and duties and stuff that I have to do every day. I haven't taken any time for myself. Okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, let's do that. Okay. When can you do that? Can you do that today? No, I gotta go to work today. I got another game today. Okay. Well, can you do it tomorrow? I got another game tomorrow. Okay. What about Tuesday? Oh, Tuesday, I'm off. Okay. So I'll tell you what. Why don't you just put a pin in that, look forward to Tuesday, and in the meantime, realize that you feeling some type of way. It's okay. It's human. It shall pass. Make sure you don't ruin anybody else's day because of that. Right? That is mindfulness. That is mindfulness. And doing that is going to take those bad filters out. It's going to help me see clear, right? And that's going to allow me now to move and function within my superpower area. All right. Okay, cool. So moving on. Every superhero has a villain, an enemy, right? And as superheroes, it takes me back to when I was a kid. Like, we're all fighting some sort of evil, right? So, my enemies, right, are those things inside of people that make them feel hopeless, that make them feel helpless. By extension, it's people who make others feel hopeless and helpless. So, like I said, I'm a cape up for the underdog. You know what I'm saying? So if I see somebody getting picked on, that's always going to rub me the wrong way again, ever since I was a child. I hate people who harm others, and cause destruction to others, especially the least of them, children, women, the poor, somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of things going for them. I hate it when people kick them, you know. And, my X-ray vision of intentionality when it comes to others kind of helps me spot villains in society, right? And when you think about it, in this case, what is a villain, right? A villain is only a person who also has superpowers, but those superpowers are being misplaced, being misused, being misguided, or being misapplied. And because those gifts are being misplaced, misguided, misapplied, misused, then that's going to cause damage to other people. Okay. All right. So moving on. Hope this is helping because it's really helping me. Superpower tools. So how do I sharpen my tools beyond meditation? Books, storytelling. I love storytelling. Love storytelling. I listen to many storytelling podcasts and videos and stuff like that, where hearing about people's lives and the way they went through something, the way they overcame something that was really funny, some just real crazy lesson in life that they learned. That just sparks my curiosity, and feeding that curiosity, it's really powers my tool belt, if you will, right? And it allows me to examine humanity and understand the intricacies of people during their experiences and how they deal with it, right? Okay. Every superhero needs a home base, right? A home base or storehouse. So my storehouse are my friends, and family, specifically these friends and family who are really like, I could tell you this, man. It's a lot of things I don't have in this life, but I'm gonna tell you what I do have. I have the most insightful, wisest, smartest, most down to earth, salt of the earth people imaginable as my friends. And I'm talking about real friends, friends I could call on in the middle of the night if I needed to, friends I could ask for money, you know. And it's not like I do these things. A lot of times I won't even bother them when I'm going through something or dealing with something. I don't like overuse them by any stretch. But when I need them and they know I need them, guess what? They always show up. They are always providing a great example for me. They are always a support system for me. They are always awe-inspiring in terms of what they're doing in their lives. That makes me say, hey, Chris, keep doing your thing. Keep doing your thing, right? And these people come from all walks of life, right? Various experiences, professions, income levels, and learn wisdom. And so when I tell you they're like my dopest resource, they really are, and they definitely know who they are. Uh, but and when I need them, trust me, they come through. And when they didn't came through, I'm flying. I'm flying. Okay. So to that degree, as we wrap up, all superheroes, they need to know their strengths. They need to know what weakens them. They need to know what tools they have, what tools they need, and then how to be restored, how to have your strength restored. And like I said, when a job is well done in my Gotham City, that's just another citizen made whole, right? Another citizen made whole, another one that can see the light of day, and then I go on about my business. And with that, I hope that if you don't know what your superpower is, that you understand that you do have one, and that you will really be curious about finding out what that superpower is. And then just walk in it, man. Walk in it because it's your superpower. It was given to you, it was given to you by the universe to bless others, you know. And not only to bless others, but to bless yourself because as you it's like a circular thing, right? So when I'm pouring into somebody's life, I'm getting that energy right back because every time that person is edified, that energy of edification is coming back to me as strength. It's coming back to me as nourishment and nutrition. And it says, keep going, keep going, keep going, until this job is done. It means something, it's worth something, you know. And so, giving is receiving in that way. It's receiving in that way. There's an action and a reaction. There's, what I'm saying? It just goes on and on. And, so be curious about what that superpower is, walk in it, enjoy it. And I think your life would just be a lot more fun. You're still gonna, me learning about this stuff like within the last few weeks, when I say learn, I mean like really like not that I had no idea, but I didn't recognize it as a superpower until I was hip to it, till I got told this. And I got told all the reasons and it made sense. And even now, like weeks later, it's still there. Like I can feel it. And even though I've had some downtime since, very discouraging time since. That's part of life, certainly part of my life, knowing that these superpowers are there and that I'm valuable in that way has helped me to maintain a certain level of uh, sustainment and consistency in that to where that one thing that's really bothered me doesn't knock me all the way down. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Hey, need your help? Please like, subscribe, share, do all the things that people ask you to do because it helps with the algorithm. It helps to get the message out. And, I think that these things are important. And I'm bold enough to say, yeah, they're important. And, maybe it ain't for you, but it may be for somebody else that you know, right? So thank you. Y'all stay safe and be blessed. Peace.